Hey everybody, how are you? I'm Andre C. Hatchett from crowdfundingequity.net. Here we have the godfather in the equity crowdfunding Black space, Mr. Brandon Andrews. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Happy to be with you here and excited about the new platform and excited about getting this message out to our community. It's great.
I appreciate you joining. So for the past year and a half, 2 years, I really took an interest in the equity crowdfunding world, and every event or workshop I saw or went to, you were happened to be there. So if you could tell the people what you do and how you got into this space, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, this is really a passion for me. Like you, I want to see our community from an economic standpoint grow and get better. I think there's so much untapped potential that's in our community. And I think equity crowdfunding more generally as well, is an incredible way to tap some of these unused resources in our community to create wealth, to build businesses, and also to have a direct impact on the products and services that are going to be on store shelves, on Amazon, on jet.com in the future. So I'm really excited to engage with you here. So a little about me. Most people know me for doing casting for Shark Tank. I'm an entrepreneur. Our firm Values Partnerships has done casting for diverse entrepreneurs for the show for the past few years. I'm also a startup founder. I'm on my second mobile app company. Right now it's called Gauge. It's a mobile market research platform. Check it out. But I started my career on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And while I was there, the Jobs Act, so the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act, was written. I started hearing these conversations. I did tech policy and small business policy along with a couple of other policy areas. And so I started hearing these conversations about allowing Main Street investors, so everyday investors, to invest in startup companies. And I, like a lot of people at that point, didn't realize that you can invest in startup companies or couldn't if you weren't an accredited investor. So I started digging in, learning a little bit more, and was really excited to see the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act move forward in Congress. I was in the U.S. Senate for several years, and was even more excited to see President Obama sign it into law in 2012. And of course, fast forward to 2016, the SEC came out with a regulatory structure that authorizes anyone in the U.S. over 18 to invest in startup companies pre-IPO. And now a couple coming up on 3 years later, and companies are out there raising money, and a lot of Black-owned companies are out there raising money as well. And it's been great for me to see this go from idea to legislation to regulation, and now it's something that people can actually do with as little as $10, today.
Yeah. I want to hop in right there. So a lot of people just aren't entrepreneurs, and that's totally fine. Let me rephrase that. Not everybody should run their own business.
Yeah.
Should be out there in the trenches working 12, 14-hour days. Some people should do that. But I'm a firm believer that everyone in our community should own at least part of some property or part of a business. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Nielsen comes out with this stat every year about Black buying power. And last year, the stat was right at like $1.3 trillion in Black buying power. Now, that figure has been used throughout, the past 100 years or so to create a sense of self-worth and a sense of efficacy, I think, in our communities. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., when he was alive, used to say, African Americans in the U.S. have more economic power than every nation in the world except for 9. And so he used to name those 9 countries. And of course, they were Russia and Great Britain and China and some of the largest economies in the world. But number 10 on that list would be African Americans in the U.S. at that time, back in the 60s, by themselves. And so at that time, the number really, I think, empowered Black people to straighten their backs up, to resist some of the unfair treatment that we were receiving. But today, that number to me is just $1.3 trillion to be able to buy stuff. And $1.3 trillion to be able to buy stuff doesn't really mean a whole lot, but $1.3 trillion to be able to invest in Black-owned businesses, or any business, to be able to potentially generate wealth, and then to potentially, with investing in Black-owned businesses, to have a positive impact on our community. That is transformational in terms of our need to generate wealth as a community. And that opportunity is something that I'm really excited about, and excited to continue to talk to you about, man.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, have you seen any companies raise money, then exit and sell, or you invested in any equity crowdfunding companies that have been acquired or sold?
So we are still fairly early on in the maturation of the equity crowdfunding market. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's several things that can happen and that will happen to accelerate the progress of the market. But let me get to your first question first. First, yes, there are a number of companies that I've invested in, Black-owned companies that are doing really well, whose valuations have grown significantly since I made my initial investment in the companies. Thinking about Jetpack, which is a last mile delivery service. They raise funds on Republic a while back. I'm thinking about the Cut app, which is a haircut app started by some brothers out of the DC area. I'm thinking about a company like Pigeonly, which connects folks that are incarcerated to their families and friends on the outside, without having to use these predatory calling cards and other methods of communication that really prey on people who can ill afford to lose that connection. Because when you talk about recidivism rates and lowering recidivism, one of the biggest things that you can do to lower recidivism is to literally just keep people connected to their family and their community. So Pigeonly, their valuation has gone up since they raised, and several others have as well. Has there been an exit yet? No, but if you look at the traditional timeline for most companies, at the stage that most of these companies are raising, the time is just not there. They haven't had enough time to be able to get to the maturation level where they've had a good exit. However, definitely valuations have gone up significantly. And so, $50 that I may have invested in something like a Jetpack a couple of years ago is worth much more than that now. And excited to see where many of these other companies go in the future.
Yes, yes. And I want to get this point, because a lot of times we are late to the party. So
Yeah.
this is the chance for us to be early to the party.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brendan.
So there's really no better time than this. If you think about it, again, 2012, President Obama signed the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act into law. 2016, the SEC came up with a regulatory structure and said, okay, now anybody in the US over 18 can invest in startup companies pre-IPO, so before they're listed on a stock exchange. In the past couple of years, these platforms have popped up, and you know the names: Start Engine, Republic, Invest, et cetera, and there's several others. They've popped up, and these platforms want winners. So when you look at the quality of the businesses that are on these platforms today, the quality of the businesses is perhaps much more significant than the quality of the businesses will be in the future, because eventually these companies are going to get to scale. Equity crowdfunding, the idea is going to get socialized in a different way. And you're going to have it be more so akin to like a Kickstarter, where you have very little in terms of a barrier to entry to be able to get your product or service on the platform to be able to raise money. So now, as an investor, all of the platforms want good companies. They want to put good deals in front of potential investors, because they can ill afford to have companies that are not good investment opportunities, or companies that are predatory in some way on the platform. So this is really a great time to do it. And for us as Black people, but even for just a large majority of the population, let me just go here for a quick second, Andre. Have you ever heard people say, man, I wish I knew Mark Zuckerberg, or I wish I knew Bill Gates, or I wish I knew Steve Jobs back in the day? I would have invested, just $100, and I would be sitting pretty now. I'd be in a really good place economically. But the reality is, even if you knew Steve Jobs back in the day, you couldn't have invested in Apple because you weren't an accredited investor. And so Black and brown people in particular, but really about 97% of the population in any given year has been completely shut out of the opportunity to invest in startup companies pre-IPO because they weren't accredited investors. And in 2019, for those that aren't aware, to be an accredited investor, you have to have 200K income in consecutive years, 300K as a couple, or have $1 million net worth, not including your primary place of residence. Again, it's a very small percentage of the population, really around 3% in any given year. And so now that's opened up, and to top it off, we have the opportunity to really get in early with some companies. And so I'm excited about the opportunity. I do have to say that, investing in a startup company is speculative. And so you could lose that $10 or $50 that you invest. However, I think the opportunity to learn how investing works, to see yourself as an investor, that educational piece and that efficacy piece, I think is just as important as the wealth building piece, which will certainly come if you continue to do it diligently and figure out what to look for in some of these companies.
Yeah, and the SEC is thorough, so to get
Yeah.
approved by them is a very rigorous process. I
Yeah.
invested in the Gin Bros out of New York. Ever met them?
Yeah, I met them. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, so they're currently in 100 Whole Foods. So I look at it like this: if I can invest $350 with a company that's already in 100 stores,
Yep.
I think I have a pretty good chance of making out all right from it.
Yeah. And again, all of the platforms are looking for good companies to invest in. And the other piece outside of wealth building for our communities is access to capital for diverse entrepreneurs.
Bingo.
I just did, back in December, a panel in Columbus, Ohio, with the SEC, so Securities and Exchange Commission.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
that regulates capital markets. Just did a panel with them. They have an annual forum on small business capital formation, and we had a specific panel talking about investing in diverse entrepreneurs. And for diverse entrepreneurs who maybe don't have friends and family that are accredited investors that can, stroke a check and invest money in your business, or who are having trouble raising funds the traditional route, whether it's through a bank loan or even trying to go through a CDFI or even through a grant program, who just can't get that funding. Equity crowdfunding, again, going back to Black buying power, unleashes that $1.3 trillion that's in our community to be able to buy stuff every year, and allows us to now invest in companies from our community that have the potential to transform communities. Because, as you know, small businesses are the engine of growth for the economy. There's a principle called economic dynamism that speaks to the elasticity of the economy, that small businesses help inject dynamism into. And they're going to be hiring folks from our community.
Exactly.
as these companies grow. And that is really, has the potential to be really transformational.
Everybody has the opportunity to win. Do you have any tangible steps that we can take if we want to go and get approved by the SEC? Should we use one of these platforms? Should we do it on our own? Any idea how much it costs?
Yeah. So a couple of things here. One, the only way to run an equity crowdfunding campaign today is to go through a platform that's approved by the SEC. So these platforms have to get approved by the SEC first. After they get approved by the SEC, then you go together with the platform to the SEC, file your paperwork. And so here's what you need to understand as a potential entrepreneur that's looking to access capital through equity crowdfunding. One, you have to find a platform. And so there's a lot of platforms that are out there. There's a couple of platforms where Black entrepreneurs have kind of concentrated, and then I think those platforms have done a really good job of not just recruiting Black entrepreneurs, but really recruiting an investor base that's interested in investing in diverse entrepreneurs, which is a good thing. But the most important thing is, just like any investor relationship, you need to find a platform, a group of people that you work well with, a group of people that you trust, a group of people that work well with you, a group of people that you're going to be comfortable sharing your business information with. So that's number one. Number two, once you find them, then you'll set up a deal. And usually these platforms will have a deal where they take a percentage of the funds that are raised, plus they'll take a small fee to help you do your filing. So if you need a lawyer, they'll have a small fee for that. If they need help doing your marketing, they'll have a small fee for that. So it really just depends on how much money you're raising. If you're raising, 50K, 5%, it can be more significant. But if you're raising 100K, you're trying to raise, the $1 million, which is the limit. 5% really isn't going to be that much. And so it just kind of depends on the platform. But usually it's like 4 to 6% that they'll take, and then you file paperwork with the SEC. And so the SEC wants to see your financials. They want to see that you actually have a business, and that injection of capital that you get from Main Street investors through equity crowdfunding is actually going to go to building your business over time. So going to go to doing something. And then all of that documentation that you submit about your business, those financials, those things are going to be available on the internet for anyone to see, because anyone can invest in your company. Anyone needs to be able to see those financials to be able to make a good financial decision in terms of investing. Now, that doesn't mean that proprietary information about your business will be listed on the internet. It just means that financial information is going to be listed on the internet. And then the biggest tip that I have for entrepreneurs that are looking to run a successful equity crowdfunding campaign is you have to build your audience. You can't assume that people are just going to come to the platform. Like some of that will happen because the platforms are interested in having entrepreneur or investors come and invest in your company. However, you need to curate and build a list of people that you can go out to before your company is listed. So before your day one, before investments are opened up, you need to go out to them and get some commitments from them. You need to have a list of folks that you can, broader group that you can go out to when your investment hits. And so you should be reaching out to people like me and like you, Andre, to potentially get some coverage for your new equity crowdfunding campaign. And then you have to run this campaign almost like you would run a political campaign. You have to walk up the ladder from being interested and saying, oh, that's really cool, I can invest some money in my buddy's startup company, to actually going on the platform and investing those dollars in the company. And so for most people, that's like 3 touch points that you have to make with them. So you need to send them an email, send them another email, then even potentially send them a text. You have to run the platform actively. And so I think the biggest hurdle for entrepreneurs to get over with this opportunity, outside of having to share that financial information, is you have to run this campaign like a campaign. It is a day-to-day thing that you have to do. Now, if you're able to do that, if you do that effectively, there's really significant rewards in terms of your opportunity to raise funds for your business. But if you don't do it effectively, then you're going to be limited in terms of the amount of money that you're going to be able to raise with the campaign.
Good stuff. So don't play it cool. You need to, and once you're on the platform, there are other companies there too. So you don't want to rely on the platform because you can get lost. There's like hundreds of companies.
Yeah. I mean, you're only going to be the startup of the day one day, and then there's other companies that are going to be the startup of the day the next day. You're only going to be on the front page of the platform for so long, and that's only going to bring you in so many investors. You have to go out to your personal network or a professional network, or build that network and bring those investors in. Yeah.
Good stuff. Now, for you, how do you earn a living personally with your companies? Do you do consulting? What's your bread and butter per se, or bread and butter?
So a couple of things here. Values partnerships. I'm a partner, business partner, Joshua Dubois, who's the CEO of our company. We are a social impact agency in Washington, D.C., and we help our partners, our clients, engage diverse communities and also communities of faith. And so, again, that means running a nationwide casting tour for ABC's Shark Tank, but we also do marketing for film and TV projects. We helping out with marketing for If Bill Street Could Talks. We did the R. Kelly series for A&E Networks. Yeah, and we do a couple of those every year. On the tech side, we work with the Consumer Technology Association and CES to help them source diverse entrepreneurs for CES each year. We work with a variety of other tech companies, Google, et cetera. And then on the philanthropy side, we help out with public affairs and PR. So do a good amount of my work there. I'm also an investor, and so get investment income there, and then also I do some speaking, et cetera. You said you see me on panels, et cetera, about
everywhere, man.
And I really enjoy that, man. We gotta share the message. I think there's one criticism I have of President Obama. It's that I think he missed the opportunity to get the word out about equity crowdfunding and Jobs Act. I think, the Jobs Act to me should be in the top 5 of President Obama's accomplishments.
Totally.
Particularly for Black people, but really for everybody, because again, 97% Black, white, male, female could not invest in startup companies pre-IPO before the Jobs Act was signed. And so President Obama, when it was signed, it's actually one of the, I think, best stories that should give people, US citizens, hope in our government, hope in our government and Congress being able to work well together, because it was completely bipartisan. It was John Boehner and President Obama working together. Even it had a different name first, and they renamed it the Jobs Act so they could get more people onto it, so they could, kind of brand it as a jobs bill. But it's a really bipartisan piece of legislation, and I think proof positive that despite all of the fighting that you see, all the on CNN, et cetera, there's still people in Washington, D.C. that are getting things done and coming up with solutions that are impacting and creating economic opportunities for a really broad part of our nation. And so, hopefully President Obama will take a victory lap with the Jobs Act at some point. There's a lot of Black businesses that honestly probably wouldn't have been able to raise funds without equity crowdfunding. And so definitely kudos to him for that. But I think, a missed opportunity and him, not being more vocal about it when it was signed back in 2016, when the regulation was released. And of course, now that you have companies that are actively raising on a regular basis.
Yeah, and it's a bill, so bills can be written in and be written out. So let's not drag our feet with this. We don't know what's going to happen out there. So let's be active.
The SEC is considering changes. So right now,
wow,
the limit on the amount that you can invest is $1 million, just over $1 million for a startup company in a 12-month period. And for most people, although some can invest more, most people can't invest more than a couple $1,000 just because of income limitations. And so there's been conversations about raising the limit over $1 million for startups, and then also raising the limit that individuals can invest in any 12-month calendar year to be able to get more people, more startups interested, and also get more investors interested in the space. So there's some other suggestions that are out there that people are considering, but the SEC is constantly monitoring this. And Jay Clayton, who's the chair of the SEC at this point, to his credit, is not only interested in being able to make sure that as many people as possible can take advantage of the opportunity without being taken advantage of, but he's also interested in making sure that diverse entrepreneurs are taking advantage of the opportunity, and also diverse investors. I think the SEC has spent most of its life speaking to securities lawyers and speaking to folks that are doing IPOs and folks that are managing financial managers, et cetera. And now they have a lot of new audiences that they have to speak to, and they're figuring out how to do that. But they are actually trying to figure out how to do it, which is a good thing. And for us in the community, we can always make suggestions. So the SEC, and as with most government agencies, before they make a change to a rule, they'll have a comment period. And so I'm going to be sharing information about comment periods as they come out when the SEC is considering regulatory changes to equity crowdfunding, and not just equity crowdfunding, but the SEC also regulates crypto markets as well, which is a completely separate conversation, but also something a lot of people are interested in.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Last question. What do most entrepreneurs, not equity crowdfunding per se, but what do most entrepreneurs who are successful do right in business and mindset, and what do the ones who aren't successful mostly do wrong?
The ones that do it right are able to focus on moving forward. So you're always going to take hits. You're always going to have a problem with the business. Things are always not going to work out the way that you want them to work out. But those that can remain focused, that can recalibrate, that can learn and grow and apply whatever learnings that they got from either a mistake or a misstep or even from a victory, apply those learnings and then move forward with making changes to the product or making changes to the service, making changes to their approach. Those entrepreneurs that can go through that cycle quickly are usually fairly successful. The ones that can't figure out how to get over the fact that a mistake was made, can't figure out how to get over the fact that things maybe aren't working out the way that they envisioned or the way that they wanted to, those entrepreneurs are going to not be able to go through that decision cycle as quickly. And when you're in a high growth startup market, if you can't go through that decision cycle quickly, somebody's going to eat your lunch.
There we have it. There we have it. How can we follow you and how can we support you?
Yeah, man. So again, our company on the consulting side is Values Partnerships, valuespartnerships.com. We do have a mobile app business called Gauge. It's a mobile market research platform. And so any entrepreneurs or companies that are looking to do customer validation, et cetera, check it out. And we also pay you as users to take surveys and respond to products and services that are coming out. So check it out. It's in the iPhone App Store and the Google Play Store. And then me, I'm at Yes Brandon, YesBrandon on IG. Send me a DM or send me a note. And also I give out my business number is 202-831-3031. Feel free to text me anytime. And last thing I'll say here, man, is everybody's been looking at this Soulja Boy interview on the Breakfast Club from a couple of weeks ago. And I think that equity crowdfunding has the potential to do for entrepreneurs what YouTube did for Soulja Boy.
Yeah.
A lot of people focused on the shade that he threw, and he threw some tremendous shade in the interview. However, the shade kind of blocks out some of the incredible statements that he made. So he talked about being a Black entrepreneur, and he had a video game there. And then, I was so upset, man. SNL came out with this skit, and they came out with a skit about Soulja Boy, Michael Che, and they said, oh, well, this video game is copyright infringement, et cetera. And I think that's sometimes the issue with Black entrepreneurs. There's plenty of other folks that have come out with video games and nobody's talking about copyright infringement for them. But when Soulja Boy does it, it's all of a sudden on SNL and the focus of a skit, which I think is crazy. But beyond that, Soulja at one point in the interview says, hey, all of these artists and labels owe me 5% because I created this direct-to-consumer approach through YouTube. And he is right. Actually, back in like 2014, man, I did a lecture at a college, like a master's degree communications class, and it was comparing Soulja Boy's career to Ryan Leslie's career. And I don't know how much you know about Ryan Leslie.
I know a good amount, yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but Ryan Leslie graduated high school at like 16, went to Harvard, plays like 5-6 instruments. I mean, he's so musically gifted that most people wouldn't even aspire to be that gifted because you don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
But musically and in terms of training, you would think that that would lead to commercial success. And Ryan Leslie isn't doing bad. He's doing well. However, he's never had the kind of commercial success or made the kind of money that Soulja Boy has made because Soulja was able to go direct to consumer. And so equity crowdfunding is allowing entrepreneurs to go direct to consumer in a way that you haven't been able to do in the past. And so I want to know who the Soulja Boy of equity crowdfunding is going to be. I think it has the potential to be a Black entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are raising funds, and several companies have raised around that $1 million, but no one's really fully cracked the code on it yet. But somebody does, they're going to be the Soulja Boy of equity crowdfunding, and they're going to raise a really significant amount of money. And I think it can be a Black entrepreneur.
I think it will be, and I think it needs to be. I'll put pressure on myself and my team to make sure that we're able to either be them or promote them.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely.
Good stuff. Good. All right, Brother Brandon, I appreciate all you do. Every time I've seen you, man, you've always showed mad love. I appreciate you joining today. And I think we do to help. We're here to help if we can.
Yeah, man, definitely. And congrats again on the new platform. I'm looking forward to seeing some more things that I can invest in with you. And of course, I'm always here if I can be helpful as well.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right. Yeah, you too.